Witchfinder General is set in the year 1645 and centers around Vincent Price playing a real-life character named Matthew Hopkins, who was a self-professed witchfinder who actually went around back in the day identifying so-called witches and having them tortured and killed. Here he goes from village to village, torturing people into false confessions that he and his partner John Stern carry out. After getting the confessions, Hopkins and Stern sort of bag themselves some coin and move on to the next village. Now, after Hopkins and Stern assault a young woman named Sarah, played by Hilary Heath, who actually is in a couple other Vincent Price films you may have seen, Cry of the Banshee and The Oblong Box, the soldier that she is supposed to be married to when he returns from the war, he is, as you would expect, pissed off and attempts to get his revenge on Hopkins and Stern. Now, released in 1968, this was the third and final feature directed by Michael Reeves. He previously made She-Beast and The Sorcerers with Boris Karloff. Now, Reeves was just 25 years old when he died of an alcohol and drug overdose. Vincent Price sort of felt that this was one of his greatest roles, and it's pretty easy to see why.
You would be his niece. Your name, child?
Sarah.
I am Matthew Hopkins, Witchfinder. Being his niece, you two may be corrupted by Satan.
You'd be hard-pressed to find many Price performances as vile as this one. He forces women, including Sarah, to provide sexual favors to him in exchange for not torturing and killing their family members. In one disturbing scene, when he's told that his partner Stern assaults Sarah while he's away on business, he decides to just murder her uncle, who he had not been torturing, because she was banging him every night to protect the uncle. It's wild.
You are all of you confessed idolaters. However, these proceedings shall be carried out through due process of law. What law demands, we shall satisfy. You will each be tied in a prescribed fashion and cast into the moat. Should you then sink, we will know that your confessions are false. If, on the other hand, you are seen to swim or float, then your confessions of witchcraft are proven beyond a doubt in the sight of God.
He gleefully burns innocent women alive at the stake for money, and his partner Stern is just as bad. I mean, this guy is just despicable when you see him. The film does not shy away from what, at that time, had to be pretty shocking stuff. Now, I'm not sure I've ever seen a film that revels in women screaming in terror as much as this film.
The rest was slain by the sword of him that sitteth upon the horse, and all the bards were filled with their flesh.
Whether it be the assaults or the torture, it's just kind of like harrowing when you watch it. And I'm going to spoil one thing here because I do think it matters in the greater context of the film's story and its violence, and that's when the soldier Cornet finally gets his revenge on Hopkins. Now, the end of the film is Cornet chopping Vincent Price up with an axe as he screams to death. When one of Cornet's soldiers sort of sees this, he shoots Vincent Price out of mercy, and Cornet just screams at his friends in anguish that they took him from him.
You took him from me. You took him from me. You took him from me. You took him from me.
Like his friend, killed him when he was just sort of reveling in unleashing his rage and anger with this axe on Vincent Price's body. Like I said, it's harrowing stuff, and I would venture that most people expecting a horror film from 1968 that has sort of that Hammer-esque trappings and expecting something quite different from what they get here. Now, the main problem with Witchfinder General is generally its low budget nature. Although the vistas are great, night scenes are barely discernible. No key light, as my friend Pete said. We saw this at the Alamo Draft House last night. Hadn't seen it in a long, long time. And we realized when you see it on the big screen, like, oh, there's no key light here, and everything is super, super dark in the night scenes. Hard to see anything. So it sort of lacks that polish and budget of a fancier Hammer film. And the film has a bit of a problem with its pacing and story structure. It's kind of all over the place. So you sort of think, oh, well, we're going to follow this character as they go to this next part, but then you don't get that. They go off on little side adventures that seem to have nothing to do with the main thrust of the film itself, which at only like 87 minutes long, you're like, okay, a little bit more focus would have been appreciated for this. But you sort of just set that aside and you go along for the ride. Vincent Price and Michael Reeves famously sort of hated each other while making this film, but in the end they both brought the best out in one another. Price with one of his greatest roles and Reeves with a largely, aside from the night scenes, beautiful film. There's one particularly awesome tracking shot right after the opening credits. It's a doozy, and Reeves really gives the film sort of a fluid camera dynamic and menacing low angle shots. This is a gem, folks. If you haven't seen Witchfinder General, do yourself a favor and check it out. I'll rate this a B+.